First of all, I just want to apologize. I completely set up the wrong day of the week when doing the stream this time. It should obviously have been today, but I set it up as yesterday for some crazy reason. Obviously don't know what day of the week it is. So hopefully we will get some people in today, even though we've had this mistake of planning. But moving forward, it will be on every Monday at 11 o'clock. Other than next Monday, because it is a bank holiday next Monday, so I will change it to another day, potentially Tuesday, so that we can still get some training out there. If there's any particular training that you're looking for, that you're wanting, please do let me know, and I'll be more than happy to create a video or create a training session on that. So if there's a, like I say, a specific subject of affiliate marketing that you're not comfortable with and you want to learn more about it, then yeah, just reach out and I'll be more than happy to help with that. So we're going to start in just a minute, just to give people a chance to find out about the actual session through notifications, with my mistake on booking it or pre-planning it. So hopefully people will be able to find it. If not, it's obviously going to be recorded. So you can obviously get access to it, and just pop a comment in the comment section if you do have any questions on it. And also, don't forget, if you want to get notified, make sure you go to the YouTube channel, subscribe, like, hit the bell notification to obviously be told when we do set a live going. So yeah, with that, we will get started and see how we go on. So introduction to on-page SEO. On-page SEO is something that a lot of people do seem to struggle with and get confused about. There's a lot of conflicting information online on what you should do, what you shouldn't do. And a lot of the time it's a case of just actually doing and testing for yourself and seeing what results you get. And a lot of it, to be honest, is common sense when it comes to on-page SEO, and you'll do a lot of the stuff naturally as you create your content. So let's get the right window up. Here we go. So what is on-page SEO? So SEO itself is search engine optimization. So it's things that we do to optimize our website in order to try and get it to rank in Google for our chosen keywords. On-page is basically the things that we can do on our website to increase the chance of it ranking. So these are things like title tags, all of that stuff that we're going to go through today. It's all things that you can directly impact on your website to help with you ranking, as opposed to off-page, which is all the things that you do away from your website, typically the link building aspect. And it's incredibly important, because if you don't do good on-page SEO or good off-page SEO, then you're going to find it a lot harder to get your site ranking in Google or any of the other search engines, especially if it's a competitive niche. If it's a low competition niche, then you might get away with not having to focus as much. But on a competitive niche, you really need to get the on-page SEO on point, as well as the off-page SEO as well. They are both just as important as each other. A lot of people will say that content's king, other people will say that links are vital. To be honest, it's both. You need to have good on-page and you need to have good off-page as well. And it all starts from keyword research. You can't do any on-page SEO until you've done your keyword research, because you need to know what content, what keywords your content is going to be hopefully ranking for. So you need to start with keyword research, you need to start with your content plan, and then you can take it from there. Now, when it comes to on-page SEO and ranking, Google has a ton of ranking factors. I think there's over 500 different ranking factors, and these are all things that they take into consideration on where they're going to rank your website within the search results. And not all of them are created equally. Some factors are more important than others. So it's a case of trying to optimize your site as much as possible to hit those ranking factors. And we don't know what they all are. There's been a lot of affiliates, a lot of SEOs that have done tests and studies to trial to find out what the ranking factors are. And so a lot of the things that we do know are a ranking factor are because of those tests and those trials. And I'm going to go through some of those today. So things we'll be covering is the page title, the meta title, URL structure, the meta description, alt tags, header tags, keyword density, content SEO, so the stuff that we need on our content to help with ranking with on page. Then I'm also going to go into site speed and schema markup, which I've not mentioned on here. And so page title and meta tag, what's the difference? So when you create a piece of content, there are two titles. There is going to be your page title or your article title. This is the actual content, the title of the content, and is normally the header 1 tag. Then you have your meta tag title, which is also known as SEO title. And this is typically what you would put into Yoast SEO if you were to use that as a plugin, or any other SEO plugin you've defined the title. And the SEO title or the meta title is what is displayed in the Google search results. So when you go to Google, you type in the keyword and you've got the title of the website. And so the page title is for the on page H1 and the SEO title is for the SEO side. And you can use them the same. So you can use the same title. More than often you wouldn't. You know, the title that you use as your SEO title is going to be there to grab attention and get them to click through to your website. The actual title on your page might be a bit more to focus to actually get engagement, to actually get them to continue clicking through. And it'll be slightly less SEO optimized. It is, however, important to have your keyword in both of those. So you need your main keyword in the SEO title and also in the H1 title of the article, which you would expect it to be anyway, because that's what the content piece is about. And I definitely recommend trying to front load that keyword. And that's basically where you put the keyword as close to the front of the title as possible. And that's going to just get seen a lot, straight away. It's going to be like, this is what this piece of content is about. And you want to try and keep the title below 65 characters, or else it ends up getting cut off in the search results and it doesn't look as good. If you can, you can go longer than that, but if you make sure that where it does cut off, it makes sense. It doesn't look like it's just had half of the sentence cut off it. And you want to look at the title and see how you can actually improve the click-through rate. So what can you do to improve the chances of people clicking through? We know that click-through rate is an important ranking factor. So if somebody searches for a keyword, goes to your site, clicks onto it, goes to your site, that is a really good indication to Google that your piece of content is answering their query. So we want to improve the click-through rate as much as possible. And there's a number of ways that you can do that with the page title. So you can add a number. Most common way of doing this is 5 best testosterone boosters, or 5 best testosterone boosting foods. So actually having a number there. You can also ask a question. So what is the best fat burner for men? You can add a year. So best fat burner 2021. And then you can also use brackets. So what I tend to do is I would have something like 5 best fat burners for men in 2021, and then brackets updated, just to show the visitor that's looking at the search results, that's an updated piece of content. It will stand out, and therefore it might increase the chance of them clicking onto it, thinking that this is a newer version compared to all of the others. So you need to think about how you can improve the click-through rate and get people interested to click through to your piece of content. Then we have the URL structure. So when you create a post in WordPress, you have the title, you put that in, and then under there, it creates the slug or the URL of that piece of content. And you want to make sure that you keep this as short as possible, but still obviously has your main keyword in there. So if your main keyword is best testosterone booster, your URL structure would be mysite.com/best hyphen or dash testosterone dash booster. That would be a URL structure. And that would be a good one because it would be short. If you were to go for, let's say your page title is best fat burner in 2021, you would not want your URL structure to be best dash fat dash burner dash in dash 2021. That would just be too long. It would just look, it wouldn't probably show in Google, they'll cut some of it off and it just wouldn't look appealing. So you want to keep them as short as possible, have your main keyword in there, and also don't use dates. So a lot of people, when they create a best XYZ post, they will have best testosterone booster 2021. Problem with that is that when 2022 comes, that piece of content is outdated. You can't change that. You can change the URL, but then if anybody is linking to that 2021 version, they're going to go see a 404, or you'd have to set up a redirect, which is just very messy. So I would always create a non-dated version, so it'd be best testosterone booster. And then when the next year happens, you just update the content on the page to reflect the new year. And that way you're keeping the URL all nice and well structured. The meta description is basically the description that appears in the search results. So when somebody types in a keyword, they see the site title and then they'll see the meta description under that. And it's not necessarily needed for you to actually input that, because Google will sometimes either use the meta description that you recommend, or it will just pick out content from your web page and display that as your meta description. Whether that's content throughout the piece of the article, or if it's the initial paragraph, it will pull those out. I would always recommend creating a meta description. You want to increase the chance of Google actually using your meta description, because they might, it might pull data from your website that will not help improve your click-through rate. So by actually creating a well-defined meta description yourself and putting that in there, there's more chance that it would get used and therefore help with your click-through rate. And that's why it is important, because your meta description is there to kind of summarize that piece of content and to encourage people to click through. And then obviously that's going to help with your rankings. And you want to make sure that it's no longer than really 156 characters. More than that, and it tends to get cut off in the search results. And that is a good thing and a bad thing. You don't want that to happen mid-sentence, because then your meta description makes no sense. But then at the same time, when it is cut off, it just leaves 3 dots, which can actually intrigue people, can get people interested in what you've got to say. So if you can try and end the meta description so that the 3 dots are showing, and then that way it might actually encourage people to click through to read more. Failing that, just add the 3 dots yourself. It can help to pique that interest. You want to make sure that the meta description is in a positive tone. So you want to make sure it sounds exciting. It's they're going to be enjoying reading it. It's positive. It's upbeat. It's not dull. It's not like reading a science magazine and it's just a bit dull and boring. You want to make it about them. You want to get them excited. You want to get them, get the benefits in there. Summarize the piece of content in a good way, if that makes sense. Just to get them really interested and wanting to click through. And to help them click through, you'd then want a nice, good clear call to action. So it might be something like click here, find out, get it now. These kind of things, just to actually give them that call to action. People need to get told what to do. If you leave it up to them, they won't do it. So you just need to make sure you're saying, look, click here. and people do tend to do what they're told, unless COVID's involved, and then lots of people don't. And you want to make sure you include your main keyword in your meta description. So if you can, you also want to add in a long tail variation of your main keyword as well, just because that's going to help it to rank for additional terms. And the more terms you can get a piece of content to rank for that are relevant, the more traffic you're going to start getting. And long tail terms are going to be easier to rank for. So if you can get your main keyword in there, as well as a long tail variation, then you do very well. And you also want to make it unique and keep it on topic to what the content is about. Now, every single meta description that you have should be unique. There's no reason to have duplicate meta descriptions, because every piece of content should be unique as well. So therefore the meta description should be unique, and like I said, make sure it is on content. So whatever is in that meta description is what that piece of content is about, because people are going to see that meta description. If it's not what it's about, then they'll just click back to SERPs, and that's a really negative SEO factor. You don't want people to be going to your website and then clicking back to the search results. Alt tags, some debate on whether or not people use alt tags. I always use alt tags, because an alt tag is basically a series of text, or a description of, a paragraph of text that you apply to an image as an alt tag, and it describes that image. It's used to describe what that image is about. And the reason why we have alt tags is for people that are hard of sight, if they're blind, can't see very well, and they might use a website reader, and that will just read all of the content on the site, and then also read that alt tag as well to describe what that image is. So it's really useful for people that can't actually see the content to still know what that image is about. The search engines read alt tags, so you can obviously get your keyword in there. I wouldn't recommend stuffing your keyword like it was done back in the day, where you'd literally have an alt tag and it would have 5, 6, 7, 8 keywords. That just doesn't work. You want to describe what that image is and use your keyword in there where appropriate. And the alt tag's actually a really good place to use misspellings as well. So if you're targeting a keyword that has a misspelling that a lot of people search for by accident, or they just don't know, then that is a good place for you to actually put those misspellings to attempt to rank for them, because they're going to be lower competition. And that means you don't need to put misspellings in your content where it could then reflect badly on yourself. So definitely a good place to put them in your alt tags. Oops, gone too far. The next thing we want to use is header tags. So header tags are basically the way you would structure your content. So when you think about a book, you look at the chapters of a book, you have your or a magazine kind of thing, you have your chapter titles, which is your header twos, and then your content, and then subheadings. I don't know if a book is a very good analogy of that, but you basically, it's used for structure and to break up the content. So you'll have a large piece of content, and it will no doubt have segments in there. So if you were to do a product review, for example, you would have what it is, how it works, benefits, ingredients, those kind of things in blocks of text, and each one of those would have a header. So they'll normally have a H2 tag, because your page title would be the H1 tag. Typically, you'd only have one H1 tag, and then you could have as many H2s, H3s, H4s as you want. So what I would typically do is use it to structure my content and break it up. So I would have, for example, ingredients as the H2, and then below that I'll have each individual ingredient as a H3, and then a paragraph of text to describe that ingredient. And then that way you're just structuring it nicely, breaking up the content. And you want to use your header tags to put in your keywords. You can use your main keywords, but then you also want to be using your secondary keywords as well, because it's a perfect place for you to put in related keywords that you also want to rank for. The more keywords you can get that piece of content to rank for that's relevant, the more traffic you're going to end up getting, and that's obviously a good thing. You obviously find that the secondary keywords tend to be less competitive as well, especially the long tail ones. So definitely make sure you use your header tags and use them to really use the main keyword and your secondary keywords. That's keyword density. Cool. So the next thing is keyword density. So keyword density is basically how many times a specific keyword or phrase appears in an article. And if you had a 1,000-page piece of content and you mention your keyword 10 times, then you've got a keyword density of 1%, if my maths is right. So you want to make sure, keyword density is something that is very old. In fact, typically people would back in the day say you need a keyword density of between 1 to 3%. It's been proven in a lot of tests that keyword density doesn't necessarily matter. But what you need to do to find the perfect keyword density is see who's ranking on the top of the search results, and see how much content they have and how many times they mention the main keyword within that amount of words, and what their keyword density is. Because there's a good inclination that if they're being rewarded by Google by having that top spot, then the keyword density that they have is a good amount. So that can be a good way, a good place to look as to how many times you should mention the main keyword within your content. And there are tools to help do that. So for SEO, Page Optimizer Pro, Cora, things like that are all there to help you to analyze the top search results and see how many times they're mentioning the main keywords within the content. So when it comes to on-page SEO, so the actual content on your page and what you need to do with your content to help with the on-page SEO. The first thing you need to think about is word count. And this has been debated so many times in the past so many years that, does word count matter? Should you be having a 500-word article, or does it need to be 1,000 words, or does it need to be 5,000 words? And this has changed a lot, because before you could just write any piece of content, get it ranked, and it'll be fine. Then the updates came in that thin content, which is short content, was negative on your SEO. So then a lot of people would be writing 1,500, 2,000 words, and you tend to find the content that had the most words would rank better. A lot of the time it still is the case, but that's just because they're targeting lots of keywords. So therefore they're getting a lot more traffic because they've got a higher word count so that they can get more secondary keywords on there. But a lot of the time it all depends on the search intent. So if I was to be looking for a recipe for some food, I wouldn't be expecting, a 4,000-word article. I would probably be expecting 500-600 words, if that. I want the recipe, give me the recipe. But then if I was looking for the ultimate testosterone buyer's guide, I wouldn't get all the information that I need from a 500-word article. I would be expecting, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 words. If it's this ultimate buyer's guide, you would expect it to have a lot more content. So it's all down to the search intent. And it goes back to the keyword density. If you can look to see how many words the top 3, top 4 sites have in Google, then that is a bit of a good indication as to how much content you need to write. If they're all ranking for 2,000, 3,000 words, then you need to write that amount rather than getting away with a 500-word article. So it's definitely worth looking to see what those above you are how many words they've got. It's not a case now that you can just say, oh, write 1,500 words and that'll rank. It's all down to the search intent. I would always have a introduction paragraph in my content. So the introduction paragraph would be just one paragraph which kind of introduces the content and summarizes it straight away. So it's just a clear, concise piece of content that says what the article is about and potentially the answer. So if it's going to be a best XYZ post, then it'll be something along the lines of, if you're looking for the best testosterone booster, then I would recommend this one. I go into more details below in the buyer's guide, something concise like that. Because then straight away you're giving the person the answer that they're looking for, so they don't necessarily have to read through all the text if they don't want to. You've got the main keyword of that piece of content straight away. So when Google lands on it, it'll see straight away that's what this piece of content is about. And that initial piece of content can also get picked up as a featured snippet and appear in the search results at position 0 as well, which can get you potentially a lot of traffic. I would then have a table of contents, and a table of contents it's not necessary really for SEO purposes, but it's more for user experience. User experience kind of goes hand in hand with SEO. Google wants people to have a good experience. They want them to find the answer to the search query. So a table of contents can help with that user experience because it allows people to jump to a certain section that they're interested in. And the table of contents also helps with getting the site links within the Google search results. So that can just give your site a little bit more exposure in the search results, which can obviously then improve the click-through. You then want to use other media, so using images, video, infographics that support your piece of content. Nobody wants to go to a page and just read a wall of text. You want to be breaking it up with images and video. Good thing to do is to go again to the search results, look at the position 1, 2, 3, 4, and see exactly what media they're using. If they have images, make sure you have images. If they have a video, make sure you have a video. If they have an infographic, make sure you have an infographic. If they've got a piece of media that they don't have, so if they've got images and an infographic but there's no video, then try adding a video, make your piece of content better. And that's, you just want that range of different media on your site when it's complementary to that piece of content. I'll then end the article with a conclusion and make sure that the keyword is in that conclusion as well, just to finish the piece of content off. So kind of summarize and have that keyword in there. So to Google, if they'd come to my piece of content, they would have the main keyword in the title, the meta description, it'll be on the first paragraph, it'll be littered throughout the piece of content in relevant places that it makes sense, it'll be in the alt tag, it'll be in the final paragraph at the end. So it's clear to Google, if they come, this piece of content is about this keyword because I'm being told, what it's about. So it comes naturally as well. If you're writing a piece of content on a subject, you would expect your main keyword to appear in there naturally anyway. So it's just reinforcing that. And then you want outbound authority links. So, at the bottom of the page, you want to link out to sources, authority sites that are within your niche. And that's just going to help put you in the same neighborhood of them. You just want to make sure that these are do follow links. And it's definitely useful to do that. And you just want to make sure it's not sites like Wikipedia or WikiHow. You want to make sure it's things like clinical studies. If you mention ingredients, then link out to a clinical study of those ingredients. It's just all about sourcing your references. It just makes it look like a much better piece of content. Oh, good morning, Manjesh. It's good to see you. I'll stop it there and ask if anyone's got any questions. Just pop them in the comments, and I'll be more than happy to answer. So yeah, feel free to ask any questions at all. So internal linking, What is internal linking? So simply it's linking from one piece of content to another on your website. So if I have 5 best testosterone boosting foods, then I would potentially link that to the worst testosterone foods, or I might link the worst testosterone foods to a best XYZ post to show how people can increase their testosterone. So it's all linking from one piece of content to another. And the reason we do it is to help with internally ranking our pages and passing through link juice from other pieces of content. So it's typically really hard to build backlinks to money pages. They don't tend to happen naturally because people don't typically link to money page content, because the obvious point of it is to make sales. So the only way you really build backlinks to your money pages is by purchasing them or doing paid guest posts, things like that, which can tend to look more unnatural. If you've got more backlinks going to a money page than you do your home page, that can look very unnatural to the eyes of Google, and it just doesn't look normal. So what we can do is we can create content that we use as a link bait. So the whole point of that piece of content is to actually build backlinks to. So it'll be a big authority piece of content that naturally attracts links. And then what we would do is we'd link from this piece of content to a relevant piece of content to actually pass that link juice through. So every time we get a backlink, that backlink counts as a vote, and it goes to this page, and then we pass that link juice through to one of our inner pages. So that's the main reason why we do internal linking, and it can have massive impacts on rankings for lower competition keywords that you typically wouldn't be able to build backlinks to. So it's definitely worth looking into doing internal link building. And when it comes to plugins, there is one good plugin that I've started using, which is Link Whisperer. There is a free version and a paid version. The free version simply tells you it just gives you recommendations on what page could internally link to another page. The paid version is that you can actually get it to do the linking for you. Personally, I wouldn't recommend getting it to do it for you. I would always want to manually keep an eye on my internal linking, but it is nice to actually have suggestions in case you've missed. If you've got a 100-page website, it can be hard to remember what is linking to what. So it can be really useful to use that and be told, "Well, this piece of content is relevant to this one, so why don't you do an internal link?" So yeah, Link Whisperer is a useful tool for that. Next up is page speed. So page speed is really important for user experience. Obviously, if you come to a web page and it's taking 10 seconds to load, you're just going to get put off and go back to the search results, which I mentioned a moment ago is a massive negative sign for SEO. So if you have someone come in and doing a search in Google for a keyword, if they go through to your website and then click back to the SERPs, then that's basically just telling Google this website doesn't answer this query, so we'll bump it down. If they click through to your website and stay on there and engage, then that is a good sign to Google that your website answers that query. So we want to keep the user experience as good as possible, and page speed is definitely one of those factors. So ideally, you want to have the page speed at least no more than 2 seconds, ideally. The quicker, the better. But one of the more important factors is the time to first byte, which is TTFB. And ideally, you want to get that lower than 500 milliseconds. A lot of that is down to the host. So you definitely want to have a good host setup, good caching, all of those kind of plugins, and get your time to first byte down as much as possible. Come May, we have a Google update coming along, and web core values is a big part of that. And it's all down to their user experience. They're trying to make the user experience more and more important. and web core values is a big part of that. So in May, they're going to be releasing the web core values as part of their ranking algorithm. We don't know obviously how much of an impact it makes, but it's definitely things that we want to consider and get our scores as good as possible. So there's three things when it comes to the web core values. There's the largest contentful paint, and this is basically how long it takes for the biggest part of your website to load. There's the first input delay, so how much of a delay there is when somebody interacts with your page. So if someone puts their email address in, how long does it take for the web page to react to that? Is there a delay when somebody clicks a button? How big of a delay is there for that to actually do something? And then there's the cumulative layout shift, and that is basically when someone comes onto your page, how much does your content move to load additional content? And I can imagine the biggest factor of this is going to be display ads, because the amount of times that you land on a web page and you're reading the content and then a display ad loads and it pushes the content up or down, it's as irritating as anything. So having that in as a ranking factor is obviously to try and reduce that. It's not very good user experience. So those are the three things that you potentially want to look into. You can look at the page speed insights for Google to see how yours are scoring, and then it gives you recommendations on how to improve that. So if you already have an established website, I would definitely recommend looking at the web core values. And then finally, second to last, we have sitemaps. So there are typically two types of sitemaps. There is an XML sitemap and a HTML sitemap. And what these basically are just your content listed. XML, you'll have your post sitemaps and page sitemaps, and then it'll just list every single post that you've published, the date, and the last updated date. And the XML sitemap is submitted to Google through Google Search Console, and it's not needed. You can get a site ranked and whatnot without a sitemap. You don't need one, but actually giving that sitemap to Google and pulling it in the Search Console is just going to help. You're telling them where to go to find content. It's going to naturally help their spiders to navigate and get content crawled and whatnot and indexed. So it's not essential, but it's, if you can do whatever you can do to help get your site crawled and make it easier for them to crawl your site, then it makes sense to do. A HTML sitemap is slightly different. This is more for user experience and user navigation, and it's typically going to be a page which then has your categories and then your articles under each of those categories, like a typical hierarchy kind of system. And not many people use HTML sitemaps. I've used it on a couple of websites. Can't say it's give a massive benefit, but then at the same time, I can't say it's hurt it. If the spider crawls your HTML sitemap, then it's just going to link them through to your other key content. So it's going to help with crawlability and just helping the crawl bots to find your content. Excuse me. And next we have Schema. So this is the last one, Schema. So Schema is basically data that you provide. You're basically telling Google or other search engines what this piece of content is related to. There's different types of schema. You've got articles, events, products, people, organizations, local business, reviews, and recipes. There's more, but these are the most common ones. So the ones that you would typically use as an affiliate would be articles, reviews, and potentially recipes if you were to have like nutritional content. And what this does is it basically just gives Google key information about that piece of content. So articles, it'll have, the author, description, profile picture sometimes. Reviews, it'll have product reviewed, how many stars you've given it. And it doesn't necessarily help with ranking in Google, but it does help you to get featured snippets, and it also helps you to get key things on your search results, such as the star ratings. So when you go to Google and you do a product review search, and you see the star ratings, this is how they get those on there. And it's just do things to help make your piece of content stand out more, make your web page stand out more in the search results to, again, improve the click-through rates. So the key is just to literally try and get your click-through rates as good as possible and keep people on your page and not going back to the search results. And that is a quick introduction to on-page SEO. Hopefully that has answered some questions, and no doubt it has raised a few questions as well, as there's quite a lot to go through. My key takeaways really would be to write the content naturally, and you would find that your main keywords would appear in there naturally as you're writing that piece of content. Obviously, you want to look at what other people are doing that are ranking and seeing how you can use that information to improve your content. Obviously not copying what they're doing, but use it to improve on what you're doing. If you need to add more keywords, if you need to add more media, then you know exactly what you potentially need to do. And the other key is user experience. Make it as valuable to the user as possible. Write your content for the user, not for the search engines, and you'll find that people will actually stay on your content, they'll engage, and that ultimately is a good sign to for the search engines. So yeah, there we go. If anyone does have any questions, open that up now. So yeah, please pop in the comments if you have any questions at all about on-page SEO or about anything to do with affiliate marketing. So I'll give it a couple of minutes to see if any questions come through. And like I said, next week's will probably be on a Tuesday. So if you've got any questions at all, if there's a certain part of affiliate marketing that you could do with explaining, could do with a bit of training on, please do let me know. If you want me to expand on anything particular, then again, I'm more than happy to expand on that as well. So I don't think we have any questions. I'm going to give it a little bit longer just because there is a bit of a delay between me talking and it appearing on the stream. So we will give it a little bit longer. But yeah, a lot of people tend to be worried about on-page SEO. There's nothing to be worried about. Just write your content naturally, write it for the visitor, and it's all good. Cool. So I will leave that there. Hopefully we'll get another video on Wednesday, a published video onto YouTube. So keep an eye out for that. I just need to confirm what the topic of that's going to be about. So if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, make sure you subscribe, like this video, comment and subscribe, and hit the bell notification so that we can tell you when we next put a video up, which will be Wednesday. So yeah, make sure you subscribe to that. So good then.